Hi, I'm Brendan O'Connell, founder of Domestic Democracy United, and I'm here today to talk to you about evidences of collectivist manipulation. And I'll be talking about the unconscious inculcation of non-autonomous selfhood. You see, the principles of democracy have been, and continue to be for many, eternal tomes to the guiding ethics of individualism. The founders, framers, and thinkers who set about to create a truly free country knew that it was governmental collectivism that most endangered individual autonomy, and it is autonomy in the sense of being truly free that I'd like to discuss today. What I'd like to say is that being free to make choices, being free to determine one's own values, being free to engage with others on a level of honesty and passion. These are all components of what the founders must have had in mind when they set about drafting the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, and the Declaration of Independence. I've often said that analysis of founding documents is far less revelatory in terms of spirit in a Hegelian sense than simply glancing a single time at the papyrus of the Constitution with a properly Judeo-Christian framework in place. It would seem counterintuitive and anti-rational to some who have been trained in the language of disengaged rote memorization and repetition of values very often descended directly from unvetted intellectuals within academia and the elitist left. However, I think many Americans have had the experience of simply looking at the Constitution in its original format and being overwhelmed by a spiritual sense of historicity. It is the tradition of the Constitution that's really at stake. And what I'm here to tell you is, we as individuals no longer have the freedom to make choices. No longer do we have the freedom to determine our own values. We have lost the freedom to engage with others on a level of honesty and passion. Just think for a moment, if you will, about the last time you got really excited about something that you really cared about, or the last time you got really emotional about an issue. And there's a strong likelihood, I would suppose, that people whom you talk to about it, perhaps those closest to you, perhaps an acquaintance, perhaps family, looked upon your passion about a particular subject with disdain for the very fact that you cared so much. Perhaps we think of ourselves as being fully able to decide what we believe to be true about the world, but again, I'm going to say in our day and age, this is very much in dispute. And unless you're a very strict Calvinist, like some of my ancestors were, it's going to be difficult to find anyone who does not believe that the choices they themselves make during any given day are not, to a degree, free. Well, what I'm here to say is, due to a complex apparatus of what Freud termed psychical energy and its systematization by collectivist ideologues, we are really no longer free in that individualistic sense which our founders undoubtedly intended. The key to understanding what I'm getting at is this peculiar notion of psychical energy as properly understood. Described in some specificity by Professor Robert Solomon in his analysis of Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, entitled In the Spirit of Hegel. Psychical energy is best understood as the premise that the brain is of near identical structure to the universe. That is, the physical structure of the brain resembles the physical structure of the universe. As such, the energy of the mind correlates with the energy of the world, the physical world. It was under such a premise that Freud and early proponents of the emergent post-war psychology priesthood advanced the premise that we could use the same laws governing the physical world to govern people, which resulted more or less in the use of near undetectable methods of inculcation of values designed wholly by academic collectivists. That's really the rub of it, the whole notion of propaganda, which was openly admitted to having been used. I'm certainly unaware of any valid criticism regarding the ethical basis for using psychology to, say, sell more of a product of some sort, given there is no psychological or spiritual side effect. I mean, anyone trying to tell you that flashing a millisecond image of buttered popcorn on screen while one is at the movie theater is sinister in any way is really misrepresenting the basis of capitalistic enterprise. It's obviously, though, of dubious ethics to instill in a people's a morality that runs contrary to democracy, which is a claim I'll talk more about later. But returning to the idea of psychical energy, perhaps you've heard someone at some point mention the old New Age adage, vibrations, to describe a person's emotional underpinnings. So you're saying something critical of someone else, and this is described as being a negative vibration and all that sort of thing. And there's a sense in which this view is very much akin to Freud's theory of psychical energy. Psychical energy theory does, in fact, posit that the mind has a kind of physical energy apart from electrochemical stimulus. I do not personally think this to be the case myself, but many early members of the psychologist priesthood supposed that the energy of individuals could and should be controlled, most notably and most often demonized by media theorists of those who believe that we should use psychical energy to achieve enlightened ends was daughter of Sigmund Freud, Anna Freud, who thought that in order to prevent catastrophe, the U.S. must implement unconscious social control with the goal of keeping the irrational aspects of human nature from becoming a dominant force of American civilization. What I have in mind here is the way in which this new priesthood of intellectuals trained in the art of the unconscious was, intentionally or unintentionally, undermining the principles of autonomy, self-determination, and democracy. Why? How? What? For clarification, I'll direct you to the following passage from God and Man at Yale by William F. Buckley Jr., who had a great deal to say about the role of collectivism in academia. We narrow down our search primarily to an evaluation of the influences that stem out of the departments of sociology, philosophy, and psychology. Most particularly, we are concerned here with those within these departments who actively disparage or encourage religion, those instructors and those texts that are overtly or covertly hostile to religion, whether through the silent treatment, active opposition, or supercilious disparagement. Now, if you take that and couple it, and make the slight leap here with the following excerpt from an internet article. It says, quote, "Religion, Freud believed, was an expression of underlying psychological neurosis and distress." Freud's view of religion from this standpoint, added with the subtle methodology of Buckley in the earlier passage, equals basically the following. Psychology's main goal is to make passive, undermine, subvert, and transform traditional religious passion, the end result being a wholly collectivist society with values resulting from the academic elite rather than an individualist society with values resulting from God. This is the first prong of my attack on collectivism from this week of our Lord, which I've intomed to be anti-collectivism week. So this week on my blog at www.blogspot.com, Politalk, you can basically read all about my overarching argument against collectivism, interestingly enough, based in Hegel's philosophy of spirit. So when I reference this later, it may come in handy to note that this is an essential platform of Domestic Democracy United. So these are evidences of what amounts to collectivist manipulation, and in later articles I'll get around to talking about how really a lot of this, which it seems dubiously connected to the ideology of communism, collectivism, and socialism, is in fact rooted in a neo-Hegelian tradition of subversion of democratic ideals. So until then, this is Brendan O'Connell, founder and member of Domestic Democracy United, signing off.